What's up, guys? Autofanatic. So today's video is going to be testing out the Hawk Performance Ceramic Disc Brakes on the front of the Shelby GT350R. Now, you guys have been asking me about these because I did a lot of brake pad videos on the Autofanatic channel regarding pads that I've tested over the years on how these pads are. Now, I've tested these pads many years ago on a lot of other cars. I never ever liked these type of pads. They just don't stop well. So this is just going to be for a test to give you guys some feedback as far as how these feel on the GT350 with the very good braking hardware system that already comes in the car from the factory. So guys, I got the Hawk Performance Ceramic pads in this car for about a week. Got almost 200 miles on them. These are the pads here. I got the box to show you guys, the yellow box. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I've been pounding on this car all day. I actually have a whiplash headache trying to kill these brakes, and I'm gonna show you guys and talk to you guys a little bit more about these brakes when I pull over. The car is just a little loud, and even with the audio equipment, you're gonna have a hard time understanding what I'm talking about. So I'm just gonna pull over right now. I'm gonna take a break, let the car cool down, and I'm gonna talk to you guys all about the Hawk Performance Ceramic Brake Pads, because these things actually blew me away. When I shot the intro of this video a week ago, I completely dismissed them. In my intro, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna put them in the car, I'm gonna get rid of them, sell them for $100, put them on my website, I don't want them. But I gotta tell you, man, they definitely will stop the car. But let me pull over in a couple of minutes and we'll talk some more about these brakes. All right, guys, so I finally just pulled over after beating the crap out of the car all day trying to see if I could kill these pads. So I'm gonna give you guys some good feedback as far as these pads that a lot of you guys emailed me for the last 2.5 years. Hey, Phil, try out these pads. What do you think of them? And every single person that contacted me, I literally dismissed these pads. Now, when Hawk came out with these pads, I think about 15 years ago, I installed these pads on Corvettes, BMW M3s, BMW M5s, Porsche 911s, on a lot of cars. Every single car that I've ever put these pads on, back then, they were horrible. They had no cold stopping power. They used to fade like crazy. They were just absolutely horrible. Now, I talked to the engineers at Hawk a couple of years ago. I think it was about 2014 or 15. They told me that they revised all of their brake compounds. So as of today in 2020, I have to say they definitely revised a lot of the compounds, like the HP Plus, the HP 5.0s is much better than the HPSs that it replaced. And their brake compounds have been changed significantly, and they perform a hell of a lot better than they ever did. Like, a lot of people never really liked Hawk brakes. They used to say they were noisy. They used to destroy rotors. They used to create a lot of dust. They weren't very friendly as far as on the track and all of that. And I never really loved them, but I also never really hated them. There was a certain type of brake pad. Like, I like the DTCs. You know, it's a real aggressive pad, high torque pad. And if you're driving really aggressively, or you're going to go autocross or on the track, that's kind of like really what you want, but you have to know how to drive the car. Now, in this particular case, you know, people claim that these are low dust or no dust. I'm going to tell you now, if you have a brake pad on your car and you get no dust, you're not going to stop the car. Now, the good thing about the GT350 and the 350R, they have the same identical brake system, is that the braking system is so robust. You have a very stiff, large front 6-piston caliper. You have 15-inch rotors. You have good ventilation. And I'm going to show you guys, too, because I took the car up to 140, 120, and I was pounding on it stop after stop. And then I got right off the highway, and I took my infrared thermometer, which I got here, and I took some readings of the front rotors. And you're going to believe it or not, I didn't really exceed the temperature that I thought. I mean, we think I got it up to like 250 degrees, which really wasn't bad, considering the weight of this car. This car is not that light. It's under 4,000 pounds, but it's not that far under 4,000 pounds. So you have a lot of grip. You have, you know, good amount of weight, a good amount of power. There's a lot of kinetic energy that builds up in the brake system that you have to put. The cooling and the thermal capacities and the compound of this has to just stop the car. And I'm going to tell you now, the braking system of this car is so damn good, you know, from testing all these pads for the last couple of years that I've owned the 350 platform, that you could probably cut 2 pieces of wood and replace your brake pads with 2 pieces of MDF, and you probably would still stop the car pretty damn good. You know, figuratively speaking, what I'm trying to say is, no matter what pad you probably put in this car, the braking system is so good that it's going to get you by on the street. You're going to be able to go and drive the car regularly on the street, cruise around, do what you got to do, fine. When you start to get the car exceeding over the 100-mile-an-hour mark, going to a track, going to the autocross, or going, like when I go upstate, I go on some backcountry roads and I'm pounded on the car. Sometimes I go through some of these roads and I'm pounded on a car for about a good 30 to 40 minutes. And that doesn't sound like a long time, but when you're on the brakes, in and out of all those corners, you're overheating them. And that's where I like the Carbotech XP8, XP10 combo when I do that stuff. And something like this is really not recommended for that. This is really a good all-around street pad. You're going to get less dust. The type of dust you're going to get is going to be less corrosive. You're not going to get the iron, that rusty iron. And usually when the brake pads have a lot of that iron, they have really sticky resins. It makes the wheels a lot harder to clean. So everybody complains on these cars is the brake dust and wheel cleaning. But now with this type of ceramic pad, whether you do it from Hawk or Carbotech or any other vendor, you can literally use the autofanatic wheel cleaning foam with a really good pressure washer and do a touchless wash all the time on the wheels. You're not going to have to scrub them. Now, as soon as you get, a high iron pad in there where it's got a lot of this nasty sticky resins and then you drive through rain, that's where it's going to become a little bit more trickier. But I got to tell you, so far, these pads will stop the car. They stop the car really well driving around locally. On the highway, from testing, in the past week, I got about 200 miles on these pads. When you go up to about 80 miles an hour, it's like usually that's a sweet zone. You're still speeding technically, by the speed limits in most places where you live. When you're at 80 miles an hour, you're driving the car, let's say you're in fourth gear, you're revving it out, you're getting on it hard. Let's say you got to do a panic stop. The car has excellent panic stop maneuvers with these pads in the car. Now, what I noticed is when you exceed over the 100-mile-an-hour mark, when you hit up to like 115, 120, and you push it to 140, which is not that easy to do on a public road, but if you were to do that, as soon as you start hitting the brakes at that speed, I was getting a lot of shudder in the pedal and in the steering wheel, a lot of vibration in the steering wheel. And most likely because you're starting to glaze the surface of the pads, it can't deal with the heat when you're doing that type of application. So I took the car up to 140, slammed on the brakes to about 80. Took it back up to 140, slammed on the brakes to about 60. And I kept doing it and doing it and doing it. So I did it about 4 times. After the 4th time, there was a lot of fade in the car. But you have to understand, nobody's really going to do that in real-world scenarios on the street. So I just do it to test, to see what the pads can handle, how much abuse they can handle. Are they going to smoke? Are they going to completely be dead? Is the pedal going to go hard as a rock and I'm going to lose everything? No, it didn't do that. And I'm going to show you guys when I get out of the car. I had a clip that I shot earlier today where I got the temperatures up to about 250 degrees on the rotor. And believe it or not, that's not bad. I think the temp range on these, you have to look it up on the Hawk side. I think it's about 600 or 700 degrees Fahrenheit. So if I got the rotors at 250 degrees, let's say the pads, figuratively speaking, got up to 400 degrees, okay? They're still within their operating zone, which is really, really good. So I didn't overheat the pads. I didn't kill the pads. I didn't blew my rotors. I didn't damage the rotors. Now, a couple of things that I'll notice that I don't like about these pads is that there's no modulation. It's not a linear torque curve on how the brakes grip and then how they apply that torque to the final stopping distance of the car. So what I mean by that is like you could be on the pedal, dragging the brakes, and then eventually, you figure you're going to generate some heat and you're going to go and gradually step on the pedal and you want to gradually stop the car. Well, it's not really doing that. What ends up happening is you put your pedal input a little bit firmer and it just seems to lock up the wheels and ABS constantly keeps intervening. It's driving me nuts. But you really just have to change the way you drive. So if you plan on keeping these pads in the car, you're going to have to change the way you drive. And if you drive aggressively, that's something I just want you guys to know is that the torque curve and the modulation, it's not very linear. It's almost like on and off. If you want more of a linear feel, the Hawk Street 5.0 is a better compound for that. And I did videos on that about 2 years ago, and I'll link that video in the end screen and also in the description of this. So you guys want to go back and see that. That's a really good all-around pad. If you want to just get rid of the OEM pads, you don't like the dust, you don't like the noise or whatever, and you're not really going to track the car, and you're going to just drive these cars in the street, consider the 5.0s. And also definitely consider this. They only make the application for the front of the car. I didn't really find the rears, and I have the 5.0s I put in the back, and these are in the front. So that's how my car has been tested for the last week. Now, aside from that lack of modulation, they do have good cold bite. They do have good bite when they're warm, and they do have pretty good bite when they start to fade off. But to be honest with you, on the street, you're never, ever going to exceed the capacities of these pads. So they're cheap, they're lower dust, they're quiet, they have really good fade resistance and pretty good temperature resistance as far as what I've put the car through. And on this car, it's going to make the car feel completely normal and not feel anything different. So I really dismissed these pads from the get-go. I says, man, I don't know why I'm taking out the factory pads to put these pads in. The car's not going to stop. I'm probably going to do some testing. I'm going to probably hit somebody. I'm going to probably fly off the road. I was just totally freaking out because of my past experiences with this type of a pad from Hawk. Considering what I know and what I've learned over the years, they redid the formulations and everything is like night and day difference. So I'm going to get out of the car now. I want to show you guys the brake pad accumulation on the front wheels. I'm also going to show you the rotors. And but before we do that, let me just show you the clip right now from earlier this morning when I drove the car up to that 140 sprints and I was kind of pounding on it, trying to overheat the pads. And you guys are going to see with the infrared thermometer in real time exactly the brake dust accumulation at that point this morning, and you're going to see the temperature range. So let's go to that clip right now. All right, so I just got the car up, did a bunch of stops from about 120 down. So just checking the rotors. Got them pretty hot. They're over 200 degrees. But believe it or not, these rotors definitely have a pretty good thermal capacity of cooling down. So it's a little bit hotter. Yeah, see, they're coming down quick. All right, let's get out of the car and I'm going to show you guys a close-up. I mean, the brake dust is on there. You can see it, but these are super easy to clean. You can see the compound. It doesn't have that rusty iron deposits. You can see the brake rotor. It's got nice, even coverage. That means that they're bedded in properly. Okay, no issues with that. But I got to tell you, these Hawk pads, they stop the car. They stop the car well. It's definitely a good pad for a daily driver. And you got to understand, too, guys, a lot of people aren't taking these cars to the track. A lot of guys are just driving them, you know, spiritedly on the road. They want to enjoy them, go in the cars and coffee and stuff like that. So if you're really not pounding on this car, you're not killing the car, this is definitely a good option. It's going to be lower dust, easier to clean, quiet, but you got to understand it's not going to have the modulation of the factory pads. It's going to also intervene with the ABS. It's something I just don't like. You just got to be careful with that. But it's just one of those things that you just got to consider. So hope you guys liked this video. Got some important information regarding the Hawk Performance Ceramic Friction Pads. And I will see you guys in the next video soon. And please subscribe to the channel. And if any of you guys out there got these pads, please post it in the comments below. I want to hear from you guys and we'll talk some more about it. And you can also email me anytime direct at info@auto-fanatic.com. I'll see you guys later.